No, the answer isn't because it's hard or because it makes you start from the beginning over and over. It's because Enter the Gungeon uses a ton of subtle mechanics to encourage growth, stop lucky runs, and overall sharpen you into a better player. Sit back and let me blow your mind. Gungeon has a different main objective depending on how much progress you've made in the game. At the start of a fresh file, the player is expected to assemble the bullet that kills the past, which has 4 different components scattered through the floors. You might think it's the challenges within the rooms that make you a better player, but not quite. One of them you grab through invisible minecarts, another you slowly walk through an invisible path. Not really skills you need to learn. Instead, these components nudge you to play as many rooms as possible. As a new player, you may be tempted to rush through the floors as efficiently as you can. Less rooms means less enemies and less opportunities for taking damage. The only room you need to find to progress is the boss, and most people will end up seeking out the 2 chest rooms and the shop. This often leaves large portions of the floors incomplete, and your map looking like one of them old maps where people didn't know anything. To prevent this style of play, the player encounters their first hurdle, the Prime Primer. As the first component of the bullet that kills the past, it costs 110 shells and is always located in the 2nd floor shop. 110 shells isn't a terrible cost if you're in the mines or the hollow, but so early in the game it can sometimes be impossible to generate that much money. The only way to increase your chances without relying on luck is to clear as many rooms as possible in the first 2 floors. By doing full clears, the player can be more familiar with enemy patterns and overall more comfortable with the game. This applies to every other bullet component. The arcane gunpowder and planar lead are found through exploration, with their chambers being found randomly in the 3rd and 4th floor. You're gonna have to dig out the entire area. The last piece, the obsidian shell casing, is found by defeating the final boss and then taking the part to the gunsmith who's found on the same floor. Oh yeah, I didn't mention that all 4 parts can't just be picked up for them to count. You have to take him to the blacksmith who resides on the 5th floor. So if you were to say full clear floors 1 and 2, but die before you made it to the shop, well, now you gotta do it all over again. It's a built-in training regimen that doesn't allow you to advance the story until you're confident. It's pretty tough, but once you're able to bring all 4 pieces, you assemble the bullet and you're able to fight the past bosses. These are pretty tough too, but you'll have an easier time if you got good guns and items, right? Haha, no. The past is just one of the many ways Gungeon stops you from beating the game with pure luck. In other roguelikes, like the Binding of Isaac, some item combinations are so good that the game ends up playing itself. There are only so many runs you can do before you eventually get that blood vomit, plus head of a dead animal, plus head of a dead animal. And so early runs feel like a slot machine until you get enough skill to make any run matter. Gungeon doesn't ever let you feel safe with a few important mechanics. First and foremost, the power floor you start at and the ceiling you reach by the end of a run aren't drastically different. Your starting items can handily deal with the first 2 floors, and most endgame gear is just a few hits away from being useless. Gungeon's passives aren't nearly as strong or stackable as other roguelikes, and not to mention, you get a lot fewer of them. The item pool is split by guns, with every floor guaranteeing an item and a gun in each of their main chest rooms. While guns are good, and some are broken, most of them won't save you from death. They're really only as effective as your own skill as a player, mainly because of the DPS cap. The DPS cap is a mechanic that physically prevents bosses from being shredded. Depending on the floor, there's a threshold of damage that a boss simply can't take before heavily reducing your DPS. There are some exceptions and some ways to get around it, but generally you're going to have to play the game. You're going to have to learn boss patterns, knowing when to roll and when to walk through rows of bullets. Rolling should only be used as a last resort, as you can't roll and shoot at the same time, which makes it all the more ironic that most players will end up panic rolling when they're unfamiliar with the boss. Brute force won't let you break through here. These last 2 have been like indirect ways Gungeon stops you from being lucky. What about a mechanic that just decreases your odds of getting rare items? Welcome to Magnificence, the chest rarity reduction system. Every time an A or S rank chest is spawned on the floor, the player gains 1 point of Magnificence. For every point of Magnificence, the chance that a chest will be downgraded in rarity increases. So you might think, oh okay, the first point probably decreases your chance by like 10%, and it increases to like 100 by 10 points. Not quite. Your very first point of magnificence decreases your odds of getting a rare chest by 80%. If you somehow manage to get another S rank item, that decrease jumps to 95%, and everything further is just assurance that it won't happen. Now, let's just say you're able to gather a huge amount of items, fire shots that do over 1,000 damage to surpass the DPS cap, and even manage to break through the statistical damper that is magnificence. Well, we go back to the great equalizer. The past. Can't have the guns you didn't collect yet. To advance the story, you need to defeat the past, which normalizes your character to have 3 hearts, 2 guns, and an item, no matter what. And you might say, so what was the point of the entire run I took to get here? In terms of guns and items, not much. But ETG has one more reward for players who master the Gungeon. Sure, your items and guns may not transfer over, but you know what does? Armor and blanks. Both are precious resources that you'll need to save throughout the entire 5th floor by not getting hit. Basically, Gungeon says if you want an easier time, you better work harder for it. Every single part of this package is designed to make you better as a player, from the training regimen of the 1st and 2nd floor to the weird mechanics of the past, and you'll definitely notice it. Once I defeated my first past, the rest fell in line really quickly. So you might be thinking, great, I've got the bullet, shot myself, and vanquished the past. It's over, right? Haha, no again. This whole time, we've been talking about the game like there's only 5 floors, which is only partially true. You only need to clear 5 floors to get a win, but in between each of them hide secret floors filled with harder enemies and bosses. A full run is significantly more challenging, and not just because the floor count has doubled, but because once again, Gungeon pushes you to be a better player. Remember, like, literally every resource that's helped you kill the past? Yeah, in the full run, you get none of those. Starting from the top, we have the Keep of the Lead Lord, which hides the entrance to the Oubliette. You find it by pushing a water barrel into this fireplace, a menial task. The hatch itself, however, is locked by 2 keys. If you want to get in, no opening chests, and thus your first resource is taken. You grab the old crest from the sewers and make it to floor 2. The old crest is unique as it's both an armor piece and the key to the next secret floor. If you want to get in, no getting hit until you find the altar room. There's another resource gone. Also in the Gungeon proper is the Nod Key, which needs to be purchased for the 3rd secret floor. It goes around the same price as the Prime Primer, 115 shells. If you want to get in, no spending money. You're starting to get the idea, yeah? The mines hold the entrance to the Rat's Lair. His hatch requires a key, 2 blanks, and the Nod Key. You only start with 2 blanks on every floor, so if you want to get in, no using blanks. Hollow has the entrance to R&D, which requires you to give up a Master Round and 2 items. Master Rounds are obtained by defeating one of the floor bosses without getting hit. Another reinforcement of the player's skill. In exchange for your efforts, you get 1 more max HP. Well, until you get to the cell creep, and now no more extra health for you. By slowly stripping the player of all their resources, Gungeon forces you to play better. If you want money and keys, then go clear as many rooms as possible. You want items? Find them in the harder secret floors. You want extra health? Then perfectly dodge multiple bosses. It's more than a simple matter of difficulty. It's a learning experience held together by story progression and character power. It's pretty harsh, but I think you'll end up appreciating it. After trudging your way through it all, using all of your skills and knowledge to defeat boss after boss, that final victory against the dragon feels better than anything else. And then you go to Bullet Hell, fight the Lich, and die anyway.